Hey, what's up guys, Vitaly here with Touch Life Studio, and today we're going to talk about big guns, big lenses. A friend of mine asked me to photograph, well, she knows that I photograph portraits and I do weddings and I do kind of like a family work, but she asked me to photograph a mud run for girls. I guess there's this pretty popular event, and I'm thinking to myself, well, how hard is it to photograph dirty and muddy people? Must be pretty easy. So I have pulled out my 70-200 with Nikon Z9 lens and decided to take a challenge. So let's talk about that. So as most of you know, I am a portrait and wedding photographer, and in the past I have been focusing a little bit more on doing sports, and I had this lens. I've never done actually quite of a full review of this lens. There's plenty of specs on it, but what I would like to do is I want to actually talk about this lens. What is it like to use it? What is it like to use this lens on a bigger body camera, not such as Nikon Z9? What it's like to handle it, and just my overall experience using this lens for this mud run. So it's not a cheap lens. It comes at $2,300. I think it's probably on sale right now. You can pick it up. I think the average price of this lens when it came out was about $2,600. So again, not a cheap lens. Certainly as a successor to the much more popular lenses of a long time, the f-mount 70-200. By the way, if you want to know how it performs on the mirrorless lenses, just recently saw a video by Vahagan. Shout out to you. When he was using it on the Nikon Zf. I'm gonna actually link his video below if you're interested to check that out. So, but let's talk about this lens a little bit here. This lens has an internal zoom ring, which is, if for someone who used lenses that have external zoom ring, maybe like a actually Canon RF lens 70-200 have an external zoom ring, which is a nice lens. It's smaller, you can pack it in your bag. This one is much bigger. Again, everything zooms in from 70-200 is relatively simple. It is a medium to telephoto range lens, so it is great for portraits. It is great for sports photography, especially indoors, because this one has an aperture of 2.8, so pretty wide when it comes to photographing sports. It is great for photographing landscape. I would love to know from you guys, what do you use this lens mostly, and what's your personal experience? But in my experience, again, it's overall is top-notch. The build quality of this lens is super high. It feels like it's made out of a very high-grade material and some plastic, some metal. It is not a light lens, I admit. There are lighter lenses than this one, but I think when Nikon came out with this lens, probably close to 3, maybe 4 years ago, it is a top of the line, not a cheap lens, but if you're looking, one of the best image quality from Nikon lenses, Z mirrorless lenses, this is it. Now let's talk a little bit about the handling and ergonomics. So the lens has this basically a tripod mount, and this tripod mount is actually removable. Right up here there's a little knob. You just unscrew the knob, and I think there's a little, basically a little push button up here, and you click on it and it slides off. For some reason, if you don't need to use a knob for the lens, you can remove this, but I usually do, because I actually attach my Peak Design anchors to it, and then I have it on my sling, and then I attach, second attachment point is basically on the side here, and it's super easy to use it. Now this lens can be used also with 1.4 and 2 times teleconverters. Personally don't use it, but I've seen and heard many people use that, and it works very well. The autofocus speed and accuracy is just as good. Now this lens also comes with a customizable ring right here at the bottom, and very handy, very easy to use. Now what I did find that from time to time when I put my fingers in the back here, and somehow I tend to bump it here, like again unintentionally. You can certainly disable this ring, and again I know that some people who get annoyed by the fact that this ring gets bumped from time to time, they just simply disable it, and you can do that as well. Now something that Nikon done on a few lenses, including this one, it has this little LED display, sort of kind of gimmicky. I have used it for a few little things just to see if I wanted to dial to a specific focal length, so I can compare maybe with prime lenses such as an 85mm. I've done that to see where there's a difference, but everyday thing, not something that I use for. And even subsequent to many of other lens releases, Nikon actually removed this little LED display because maybe there's not much use to it. Now the lens also has this rubberized focus ring, which is also pretty good. It's relatively smooth, no complaints to it. I think after a while, initially it was a little bit more dampened, but after a while, you know, using this ring, I started to notice that it's just maybe a little bit more loose. Virtually there is no autofocus breathing when it comes to this lens, which means it is great for video. If you're looking to use maybe for concerts, if you're looking to use it somewhere for some performances and you're somewhere off to the distance, this is a great lens. Virtually no focus breathing. As I mentioned earlier, the autofocus is accurate and snappy and very sharp. So love when it comes to these mirrorless bodies, Nikon Z8, Nikon Z9, Nikon Zf, it is super good. Plus now you have Nikon Z6 III, which is really a baby Z8, if you will. From what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, it performs very well. Now camera, as you know, like a Z9, Z8 has in-body stabilization. So if you are shooting basically at, let's say, all the way at 200, you have some vibration happening. As soon as you turn that stabilization on in camera, it basically rocks solid. Really good feature. The camera, Nikon, does a spectacular job when it comes to stabilization. So performed with mirrorless lenses such as that 7200 Z lens, absolutely great. This lens also has a lockable hood, and it locks like this. Super easy. I really prefer this mechanism when it comes to attaching the hood. It's a 77mm, by the way, filter front thread, and it is great to use it. I don't use a whole lot of different filters unless I really need it for sports. For the most part, I usually use the hood so that I don't kind of bump my lens and maybe damage the front element. And one of the alternatives I would suggest that you can consider for this lens, if this is a little bit of a high of a price, is the Nikon 70 to 180. It's 2.8 lens. Now that lens is not an S-line lens. This is an S lens, but I think that one is more of a rebranded Tamron lens. I would love to know your experience if you used it. Probably if you're traveling, if you're going somewhere in a trip and you're looking for mid-range telephoto lens, I would say probably that one is a good contender when it comes to rather bringing this one, because this one is nearly twice as heavy and twice as much of a price. You get much more better image quality and performance out of this lens than that one. But again, if you're on the budget, the lens is a good lens to try. Maybe if you haven't used it, rent it. So yeah, I would love to know your experience using this lens. What have you used it for specifically? What genre of photography you use, and how it's working for you? Have you had any issues? Maybe you needed to send it for repair. Again, I use this lens for about a year for a lot of different events. No issues. Use it for weddings, use it for sports, use it for MudGirls RUN just recently for photography and video, and it's great when it comes to the 200 you're shooting, and images are super tack sharp. I know it is also a function of a camera itself, how quickly it focuses, but the motors within this lens are absolutely beautiful and fast, snappy, sharp. Highly recommend if you are looking for a lens to supplement your camera bag, or maybe you have a need for lenses when it comes to portraits and weddings. Man, I can't recommend this lens enough for that use. Guys, I hope you found this video interesting and helpful to you when it comes to knowing more about this lens. If you have any questions, just put it down in the comments below. I'll be more than happy to answer. And I will see you in a next video.